4, 3, rocket ship, 2, 1. All right, we are on the air. Well, welcome everybody to exam week in MGO302. Let's see. I was thinking over the stuff for today's class, and we were working on chapter 9, right? Supply. I'm going to write the short version of it. Supply chain partnering. But this is chapter 9, of which actually in chapter 9, for the purposes of exam 2, which is I know what everybody's thinking about, the only thing that we need to go over is I'm writing picking a supply chain partner. We're going to look specifically at one of the most popular tools for trying to make a choice like that. And so there's plenty of room down here, and actually, yeah, you know, on the calendar, usually what we do is we'd start today a little bit of chapter 10. Oh, and there's like a lot of overlap between the two, is how I would justify that. I thought, boy, there's so many people that have multiple exams coming up. We're probably going to end class a little bit early. Why don't we just work on this? Although, please don't tune out at the very end, because I brought some stuff that's actually for fun. Let's have a little Native Son recap. It's not going to extend airtime all that much, okay? And then we will, okay, does everybody understand here in real time with me that what we're doing on Thursday is chapter 10? That's the start of the third exam. Okay, now, right, because we have all kinds of reminders. First off, if you haven't done EQS4, run. Go do that right now. Exam 2 is by the end of the week. And if you'd like to take it at 6 in the morning, and I know like is kind of a funny way to say that, but be sure to inform Jasmine as soon as possible, because that one is actually filling rather fast right now. Okay, so let's just work on the stuff that could possibly be on the second exam. And that means that we were in chapter 9. And this is note page 83. Remember we were practicing terminology, and you have a much nicer version of this particular diagram already in front of you. And we were remarking, okay, a supply chain. There was all kinds of descriptive terms for the structure of a supply chain. And we practiced upstream, downstream, the idea of third-party logistics. There's usually a whole nother firm in here. The idea of tier 1, like from the retailer's point of view, tier 2. There might be a consultant floating over all of this, 4PL. There was one other, the reason that I recopied it onto the board, just because we are looking at those major thumbnails at the bottom of the page. And there was one other descriptor that I know you've heard this before, including the shortened lingo. These relationships, the link from one to the other, from one to the other, from one to the other, there's that strategic classification that, like, for instance, the link between here and here, or even between here and here, between the supplier and the logistical provider, what does, like a license plate or a text message, B2B stand for? Business to business. Okay, so this is just a strategical classification, but it's some lingo that you hear very, very often. We call all of these, because now we're talking about links. We're talking about partnerships. We refer to that as B2B, one business to another business, one business to another business, because that's what it is. In order to distinguish it from B2C, that's right at the very end of a supply chain, the way that we look at it, business to consumer. Right, set transactions directly with the consumer. I think that was the only thing from before the weekend that we had not added to that. All right, so what is it that we still have to do that might potentially be on the exam on Friday? What do we need to do to finish out chapter 9? Well, given the page ranges that I said, oh, you know what, not any problems in this and not any problems in that in chapter 9, our major emphasis here is on the tools for picking a supply chain partner, literally building yourself one of these. Because this is a system. It's a system that consists of linked businesses, but it becomes itself a system. And I know I showed you that slide, right? last Thursday from some of our research of an actual supply chain. They actually look much more complex than this, but that's what they are. They are a series of businesses that have chosen to link with each other, and then that's what creates the emergent whole that serves you as the consumer. How are those choices made? If you're one of these businesses, how do you pick a supply chain partner, who to connect with next? All right. Well, that brings us up to, I think we can turn the page. Let me catch up the video. Oh, here we go. Page 84. And you see that there are these two empty boxes. These are two tools that are used together that are probably the most popular set of strategic tools for you to use to pick a supply chain partner. Oh, we got a flashy screen today. All right, well, maybe it'll give me kind of like a more of an energetic disco theme if it keeps doing that. All right, before we go on to these, though, notice that they're covering up a series of thumbnails. Yeah, there's a lot of language in this chapter. And the ones that are right at the front, before we get to like, well, what am I supposed to fill in here? What are these? Is look at these. The idea of spend analysis, ABC policy, and commodity and category plans. All right. Let us picture ourselves as one of these entities over here. And I can just pick, for instance, only because it's in the middle of this diagram. And we're saying that's us, right? We want to explore the idea of partnering with other companies because it's never this simple as just these three boxes. You know what we have to do first, and that's why I'm saying, you know, those thumbnails that are right in the front, before we get into the idea of picking other partners then to link to, we have some work that we need to do first, and that's what those three thumbnails refer to. Because if we're the major manufacturer of anything, we ourselves buy a lot of stuff. Now, if we're thinking of, in particular, a supply chain partner, the general implication is it's not that you can't use this for the downstream side, but the tools that we're going to look at are generally used for considering new firms on the upstream side. Okay. Now, we're thinking about finding more strategic supply chain partners. If we're a major manufacturer, we buy thousands of different things. If you think about it, we don't have to be a major manufacturer. Think of even a small business. The wide variety of things, literally, Chapter 10 we're going to go on to is inventory management. Inventory is just stuff. It's tangible stuff. All the different things that are needed. Think of procurement. Think of, for instance, the University of Buffalo, all of the different things that it literally procures. It has a big warehouse. You generally don't see it because it's behind that earthen berm by, everybody know where the Center for Tomorrow is? Yeah, it's in the vicinity of that. And they're taking in all kinds of stuff. And you think, well, you're a university, pens and books and things like that. No, food. Well, actually, the food is generally delivered straight to where it's going to be prepared. But anything from paper towels to, in the same building, they're negotiating contracts for the bus service that links the North and the South campus. Oh, because wait a minute. I know I'm pointing at manufacturer here. One of the things that we need to realize, if you're talking about supply chain partnerships, if you're talking about procuring things that you need in order to provide value to somebody else, it isn't necessarily just tangible stuff. You also are hiring other companies to provide services. For instance, we hire and partner with another company, right, for the, what is it called, Stampede? For our bus loop between the campuses. Oh, all right. Well, how do you know that that's the right partner? How do you know how to find a good partner? Well, first off, before you launch into that, you need to think about the relative importance of all these different things, because you could rapidly drive yourself crazy if you start thinking about everything that you buy. I have a funny feeling that paper towels aren't quite as important as our partner for the shuttles that join our campus, right? So that lingo, what is it before you launch into your search for a strategic supply chain partner? That is to say, before you start using these tools right here, which we'll rehearse, you should do a spend analysis. Okay, spend analysis is you simply look back, ideally at least 1 year, and you ask yourself how much you buy. If everything. What have you spent money on? Okay, now wait a minute. That's going to be a very long list. If you're gathering together, right, from accounting everything that we have spent money on, that is going to be a very long and a very diverse list. Because there is a second very important process that we can't even begin this until we pay some attention to this, and that's the idea of commodity and category planning. Remember, you're looking at yourself. Here's all the stuff that we buy. We can't possibly plan for each individual thing, and that doesn't make any sense. Why would you plan separately for paper towels and paper clips? Don't those all kind of fall in a certain category? Isn't that kind of, well, paper towels, maybe that's a category office or cleaning supplies. But excuse me, paper clips and paper, isn't that another broader category, office supplies? This might seem like common sense, but sometimes this can be some of the most important work in trying to help a firm set up better partnerships in the future, is categorizing everything that they spend. There's got to be major categories in there. There's got to be a logical way that you can take the thousands of different things that you spent money on and group them into, and bad news is that there's no rule of thumb, right? How many? 8 different categories? 10? Well, as many categories is actually rational, but certainly as long as you're staying rational, the fewer categories, because it allows you to then concentrate on these, reducing the complexity in your environment. Okay, so we'll do some category planning. Here's everything that we've done, and you know what? I'm pretty comfortable with calling all these different things cleaning supplies, calling all these different things office supplies. Why are we doing this? Right in here, it's actually come up before, and it'll come up again. You see how ABC policy is tucked in there? Oh, because probably not every category is important. And it's back to the business about, well, who do we buy paper towels from versus who is our partner for our shuttle service that joins all of our campuses? Some stuff here has got to be more important than the other, and that's what the ABC refers to. Actually, in inventory management, it refers more specifically to your actual spending, but that does often very much map to the idea of just the relative importance of one item versus another. All right. Let's picture that we've done that. Oh, like maybe, for instance, we've got a bunch of different categories. We've got, for instance, like if we were UB, we have transportation services, we have cleaning supplies, we have office supplies. A couple other things. What would we do next in this quest to find supply chain partners? Okay, these two things, I'm not going to ever quiz you on this, but they're actually called Kraljics matrix. They're named after the person, we should honor them, that invented them. They are a very popular tool for sifting through this question. They're, for instance, if you ever took one of the professional exams for the Institute for Supply Management, ISM, it's one of the better known institutes for purchasing and partnering, supply chain partnering, like these things, they have questions on them on their exam. You see 2 boxes. It looks like there's 2 different tools, supplier positioning versus supplier preferencing. They are deceptively named. They are 2 different tools, but they're meant to be used like as a step 1 and a step 2. Everybody hear that? So let's begin with step 1, the one that's on the top. And yeah, I can add some detail. So I'm already saying, and I don't want to mark this up too much, but you know, we are talking about 2 different tools that are actually 2 different phases of a quest to find a good supply partner. But in essence, you sort of have a boundary there. Supplier positioning, you know, loosely speaking, that's sort of step 1. This, I'm going to write a little note. You're going to be looking at yourself. That's the way that I think about it. Looking inward versus supplier preferencing. When we get to that, you'll notice that that's a tool for looking outside your organization, because that's a tool for actually looking for a partner. So we begin by reflecting on ourselves. It says supplier positioning. How important are they to you? One of the things I should clarify here is the they equals items, like stuff you buy. Because I keep raising that question. I keep comparing paper towels to the transportation that links our campuses. That's what I mean. This is a tool for sifting through how important things are to you. Now, it's missing labels. This is meant to be a scale from left to right, and it's your annual expense. It's the direct result of I said, oh, you know what, we're going to have to start with that spend analysis. Okay, the spend analysis will indicate we spend a lot more on transportation than paper towels, cleaning supplies for offices. This is a scale in which you can take all the items and left to right. If you only spend, so might as well, low cost. If you only spend relatively little on it, it would be plotted over here versus we spend a lot of money on that. Now, there's also a scale that runs this way. And I'm going to write supply vulnerability. Vulnerability. So this isn't a question of spending or money. See, I'm putting currency signs here. This isn't. And technically, this is an expression of risk. Low risk. Now, I wanted to, you know, and I should have maybe even chosen a different color of ink for labeling the vertical axes on this tool, because there would be more contrast with, first off, before we talk about how you're supposed to assess this, what is this? Do you guys see, this is the traditional presentation of the supplier positioning matrix. Annual expense, low is over there. The lowest would be in that corner. That's actually also simultaneously the highest risk, just because of the way that we'd labeled the diagram. I'm just pointing that out so that you don't confuse your own labels. Oh, okay. So this we know where it comes from left to right. If you take something like the transportation, our transportation partner to link our campuses, if you spend a lot, it's to the right. If you spend a little, it's to the left. Now, what is it in terms of up and down? Because this is a map with 4 quadrants, obviously. Okay, risk. We say, well, if you spend a lot of money on something, isn't it risky? Interestingly, not necessarily. How do you gauge if a spending category is high risk or low risk? There's a couple different things that you can look for, right? First off, I just keep using, it's like off the top of my head, transportation between our campuses. I mean, there is the very real issue of student safety. For instance, if we were to partner with somebody, wouldn't we want to know that as a transportation company that they had a very good safety record? Okay, now that's something that's sort of specific to the transportation that links our campus, but that is very much, you know, actual life safety definitely could enter into this. A lot of the times, I want to say most of the time, but this is a generalization, a big driver of this risk in terms of supply vulnerability, ask yourself, this category, for instance, just in general, whoever's providing our transportation between the campuses, they're running the bus and the shuttles. If they were to suddenly disappear, it's like a thought experiment, right? Never mind why. They were to suddenly disappear. How bad off are we? How, for instance, fast could we get something else into place? The absolute absence of the public transportation between our campuses, for some reason, all of a sudden it's not there. To what degree is the operation of the campuses in it? We're gauging up or down, higher risk or lower risk. Generally anything, first off, if there's anything that you need, that there's only a couple people anywhere who could supply it, you're in a high risk category, right? Because if you partner with one of them, that's fine. I mean, you need this item. If for some reason they go out of business or they disappear, you don't have many alternatives. That automatically makes it high risk. Or it might be that there are alternatives, but you can't switch really fast. like in the case of the transportation, it's going to take a couple days, even if we spend loads of money on just hiring a limousine service to get that all sorted into place. I can't move some solution in really fast. That makes it higher risk. But if it is something that, you know, we normally buy that from Office Max, but if Office Max suddenly closed, I mean, you can get that anywhere. That's inherently the language associated with a low risk category. All right, so we're saying, and you know, this was kind of like one of the big breakthroughs with this particular tool, is that the risk associated with a category isn't necessarily the same thing as the amount of money that you spend on it. There are these other issues, and so there's this separate dimension in which to map them. All right, now, obviously this is a map, and it's divided into 4 quadrants. The 4 quadrants have names. I'll just go ahead and add the names, and then we'll talk about, well, why would we care? With this particular map, the top part is considered strategic. Remember that from the very beginning of class? Whereas the bottom row is considered tactical. Notice then what it's being decided in terms of risk. Now that's not the complete name of each one of the categories. This here, the upper right-hand quadrant, is known as strategic critical versus this is known as strategic security. Down here, the 2 tacticals, I'm labeling the right-hand one first. That's known as the tactical profit category versus tactical acquisition. There. Now, the actual tool itself, the supplier positioning matrix, is complete. How do you use it? What is this actually for? Now, one of the things I want to point out is it's called the supplier positioning matrix. I consider that a super confusing name, but that has just been its name. We are not classifying suppliers. You know, like positioning them. We're classifying supplies. Does everybody see that? Okay, so we pick a supply. For instance, we have an ongoing need for a third party to provide shuttle service between all our campuses here in Buffalo. So transportation, right? Third party transportation. We take that category and we agree, discussing these 2 dimensions, into which one of those 4 boxes does it fall. When we have agreement on that, each one of those boxes has specific recommendations for how we should treat that partnership in the future. This is how it works. So, I said transportation between our campuses. I actually don't know the number, but I imagine that we at UB, we spend a fair amount of money on that. I'm pretty confident that that is something that would fall to the right. Now, which of the 2 right-hand boxes would it fall into? I'm pretty confident we should call that higher risk. Because again, if our partner disappeared, that would be very disruptive to the operation of our campuses. And we could do something about that, but we couldn't do it really, really fast. We don't want to treat that as low risk. Oh, okay. So I just talked us into the so-called strategic critical category. The strategic critical category is the category that you should spend the most amount of effort on finding the right partner and tying them into a long-term collaborative plan. You say, well, yeah, okay, because it's strategic and critical. Yes. Now, wait a minute. As opposed to the other 4 boxes. Because you say, well, why, if I were going to, you know, partner with another business, if I was going to do business with another business, business to business, why would I not want to collaborate? Why would I not want it to be long-term? Actually, there are other categories. Because take, for instance, office supplies. And this is always a good textbook example. We do spend, as a campus, a fair amount of money on office supplies. If you think across all the buildings, and everywhere, anything that would fall in that category is used. So we're talking about something that's still, I would think, you know, office supplies, probably for us, not necessarily for a manufacturer, but maybe for us. and every lab where people are printing stuff. It's probably kind of over here more, again, to the right. It's not something that's nearly as risky as student transportation between the campuses, right? Office supplies. We have a wide variety of places that we could buy it. It's very common. Well, then that means that, you know, you wouldn't necessarily lump it into here. You would put it here, office supplies, tactical profit. What's that supposed to mean? Anything. It's not just office supplies. If you categorize it as tactical profit, it means you put it out to bid. Did everybody hear that? That's the recommendation of the Kroljax matrix, is that if you agree that this thing that you're considering, how should I procure it in the future, it's a tactical profit category. Put it out for competitive bid, because you spend a lot of money on it, right? It's over here towards the right. But you have a lot of flexibility and a lot of options in case it doesn't work out, the actual supply line. So why not put it out to bid, ask for the lowest bid. That's actually what the profit refers to in tactical profit. You could probably use, in essence, you could use your purchasing power, right, to your own advantage. Now, I keep saying office supplies because I just wanted to be talking about some certain thing. And actually, I can believe that we, UB, a campus and a learning institution, spend a lot of money on that. If we were, for instance, a manufacturing plant, I wouldn't imagine that office supplies are a major spending category, right? The raw materials that are being used at the plant might be a major spending category, but I would be super surprised if copy paper and paper clips were. Which means that that organization, same low risk in that category, but they would place it under tactical acquisition. Okay, what's the distinction between these two? This one, you put out an offer to tender, you have people bid. Here, this is the least effort category, least effort. If something falls in tactical acquisition, what we say is that you have other things you need to be worrying about. You worry about this the least. Okay? This is the category that if any category, if you use, everybody heard the phrase petty cash? Nowadays, it's not usually a cash box. Nowadays, it's a question of what? We're running low on paper? Hey, could you go to Office Max? Just bring me back the receipt. You just buy some paper, bring me back the receipt, and we'll pay you back. Okay, this is the most informal style of procurement. Right, and it's because it's tactical acquisition. We hardly spend any amount of money on this, and we can get it virtually anywhere. We got other things to worry about. Oh, now, there's one box, though, that we haven't visited. What is strategic security? Okay, well, we're back up to the high-risk category. Strategic security is a little exotic, but it's important to watch out for it if you realize you've just argued yourself into that sector. It's something that's high risk, but simultaneously, you don't spend a lot of money on it. Okay. What does this mean? Well, if you don't spend a lot of money on it, then you don't have a lot of purchasing power with a provider, right? You'd be a minor client. Well, how could there possibly be something that's really risky that you don't actually spend a lot of money on? Very often, strategic security, actual spending categories that wind up there with companies, it's got to do with IT. For instance, who have you partnered with to clear credit card numbers? You spend a certain amount of money for them to provide that service. It's probably not the majority, obviously, of all of your revenue, and they probably work for a lot of people, right? So you're just one of their customers, but that's really risky. You see that? You're exposing your customers' information to anything that involves data security. Very often, security falls under strategic security. But also, there are other categories. For instance, alarm monitoring, which is still kind of like technology. You hire a company just to monitor your alarms and to issue messages and get assets rolling if they see anything coming across their screens. You don't spend a whole lot of money on that, but there are considerations. You want to make sure that you have a good company. They're not giving away. Okay, anywhere you're exposing information about yourself, there's going to be a little bit higher risk. So these type of things where you are exposing information about yourself, but you're not spending a whole lot of money, then naturally wind up in strategic security. You say, oh, well, okay. What's that supposed to mean? This does mean also here you want to look for a good partner. The idea of a true collaborative partnership is the top part of this. The warning is, the reason it's a separate category is you don't spend a lot of money on this. That means that if you have a good partner right now, right, somebody that you're working with and things are working out, it's kind of the opposite of tactical profit. If it turns out somebody does a little look and says, hey, you know what, Amazon servers, they'll do this for 10% less, you don't switch right away, necessarily, if you could get what looks like a better price from somebody you've never worked with before. Okay? You have a little bit more, if you have a good partner here, you have a little bit more reluctance to leave that partnership, even if you're not necessarily getting the best price. That's one thing that we do observe in that category. So if you think about the diagonals are the direct opposites in terms of attitude, here you're demanding another partner's best price, tactical profit, diagonal, strategic security. You're actually willing to tolerate not getting the best price as long as everything else with the partnership's working out. Here you work the absolute most to find the best partner. Diagonally down here, here you work the absolute least. You know, it's not that important. We have other things to worry about than the tactical acquisition category. Now, having pointed that out, that's just the first one. But you have to do this study first, because here's the idea. You conduct that analysis for all of your major spending categories. You see where they land in here. Any ones, it's sort of shortening your list. Any ones that land in strategic critical, you then move to supplier preferencing. It's like stage 2. Maybe to a certain extent, because, you know, in reality, there aren't hard borders between these things. To a certain extent, strategic security. Right? If you really think you have a choice, then you might move to supplier preferencing. Okay, so now instead of looking at everything and seeing how we would categorize it, now we're going to pick something out of the strategic critical category, and we're going to move on to supplier preferencing and do the work there. Oh, so I need to pick something like my running example of our shuttle transportation, our bus transportation at UB. I said that I'm pretty sure that would be considered strategic critical. Okay, let's move forward and start assessing potential partners. Now, supplier preferencing, that is also a slightly confusing name. Because it sounds like, oh, I get it. You're going to drop a little map of how you would prefer, like this supplier versus that supplier, right? No, actually, the way the supplier preferencing matrix works, what we're going to do is we're going to drop a map of whether they would prefer us. Did everybody hear that? You know, we're trying to pick a supply partner, but the way this works is we're trying to guess who would prefer us. Now, how do you do that? Well, first off, I got to supply the labels. It's similar, right? Because it's the second stage sibling of this. Very, very similar to the first one. This is money here. But it's not the same label. The best way to explain it is value of your business. Busyness. Value of your, this is business, value of your business versus attractiveness of your account. Your account. If they got your business. Now, before we populate that with any more detail, let's again just look at the two measurements. Because what we're going to do is we're going to take a company, say Bluebird Buses, and we're going to place them on this map. But what we're doing, notice this, is we're trying to guess their perspective. Because the left to the right, you say, well, yeah, I mean, okay, that's the same thing as last time. We spend a lot on transportation. It's to the right. No, 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 no. This is from their perspective. So we might, for instance, spend $10 million on something, right? But if the company that we're looking at doesn't think that $10 million is a big client, then even though it's a lot of money to us, it would be over to the left. It's relative. And one way to think about it is, yes, take our original number from the spend analysis. Oh, we spend $10 million annually on that, and look at it relative to their overall gross sales. 10 million is how much of their gross sales? Is it lots over here? Is it hardly a drop in the bucket over here? One of the things I'm reminded of, because I just heard about this yesterday. Phil Hancock runs the Note Shaper website, and that's actually a small business, and was complaining to me the Note Shaper actually spends a lot of Note Shaper's own money on Amazon Web Services and on Dell computer equipment. To Note Shaper, that's like loads of money. I mean, it's actually most of the intake. That is nothing to either of those two companies. They would squarely consider Note Shaper right over here as just a drop in the bucket. Okay, now, for whatever we're trying to classify, we're looking at a possible supplier. We're just gauging what their attitude would be. And very often, if you compare the amount of money to their total sales, that would pretty much get you a scale. Attractiveness of your account. This is, again, something that looks like, isn't that redundant to this? Because if you're offering like a lot of money, wouldn't you be an attractive account? Wouldn't they like the idea? And the answer is, yeah, true. Actually, if it's a lot of money, if you would be a big client by their standards, sure. That would definitely make your account attractive. The way to think about this is everything else other than money that might influence their opinion of whether they want to take you on as a partner or not. Everything else. You say, well, other than the amount of money you're going to spend with them, what could there possibly be? Oh, it's pretty anecdotal, but be careful. Sometimes it's very, very powerful. There is one generality. One generality is your account is not going to be very attractive, or it's going to be less, I should say, it's going to be less attractive to a potential partner if you're not the usual type of business that they deal with. You want to buy their stuff, right? But you're not the usual type of business. And you say, well, what does that matter? Oh, well, for instance, they're a supplier of, they're a big-time wholesaler. They have great prices in, I don't know, food. For instance, canned food. And you're a restaurant, right? You buy food. It'd be great to get their prices. Here's the thing. They don't normally deliver to restaurants. Restaurants usually don't have loading docks, and it can very often be questions of physical logistics, right? Don't have loading docks. They're used to selling to other distributors, so they're used to sending out whole truckloads of what they do that back up to loading docks and just empty, right, with inside of 20 minutes and are gone again. And you're asking them to come by and squeeze into your parking lot in the back, and you don't have a loading dock, and that means that stuff's going to have to be passed down. I mean, maybe you have what's known as a pet, but this isn't what they usually do. That would make you less attractive. Another thing that's, just generally speaking, is that many companies have a service area. You might be talking about a lot of money, but they usually don't go all the way out to Buffalo. You're outside their service area. That would be on this scale, even though you spend a lot of money. I mean, they would definitely put you over here. I mean, they might put you a little lower here because that's a long haul. You're outside our usual service area. You would be less attractive. There's any one of a number of other specific things that might mix in, but, watch out for your reputation. If you haven't paid invoices with other companies, right, they share information. You might be talking about a lot of money, but they heard that you haven't paid some invoices with it. They would be putting you down as, okay, it's not a money thing. I mean, the absolute amount of money, but less attractive in that sense. Now, does anybody have any questions on that? It can basically be attractive to a company in two different ways. One, the money, yes, and then anything else, yes or no. All right, now, obviously, this is to create essentially 4 broad categories of their attitude towards you. That's the business of supplier preferencing, whether they would prefer you or not. What would be their attitude towards you as a partner? You're trying to guess that. Because, let me pick a nice, strong color. If the value of your business is quite high, you're talking about a lot of money to them. You'd be a really good client. And there's nothing, the attractiveness of your account is high. There's nothing else that's bothering them about potentially doing business to you. This category, it's all happy both ways, is known as core. This one, I'll just complete the label. It's known as develop. This one's known as nuisance. And watch out for this one, exploitable. So, I say where you be. We're looking for a future partner for transportation. I just made up a name. We're looking at Bluebird Busing. If the amount of money we're talking about that we would spend with them annually, that's a good client to them, they would love to work with us, and they work in this area. There is nothing to diminish otherwise the attractiveness of the account. They would consider us core. And where is this all headed? These two things, it's basically all about the upper right-hand box. First off, you only work this one, for the most part, if it landed in the other upper right-hand box, strategic critical. And what you're looking for, obviously, is potential partners that fall right here. This is meant to clarify your thinking. It's meant to clarify your thinking, and it's meant also as an advance warning if you approach any other companies that don't fall in that. Because, let's look. Let's say that you're thinking about approaching a certain company like Bluebird Busing, and yeah, the money is good. The money is good, but they don't work in Western New York, right? They for the most part, all their contracts are hundreds of miles away. This is, I'm trying to add something that we're not so attractive an account, right? And not only that, all of their other accounts are not universities and colleges. They normally, for instance, do the yellow buses for elementary schools in the United States, right? That's been their meat and potatoes. This would be like their first university and everything that goes with that. So they would consider us a good client in terms of value of the business, but there's a lot of question marks in terms of otherwise the attractiveness of the account. Bluebird Busing might consider us exploitable. What does that mean? It means that they'll probably make an offer, right? It's good money. That's probably not going to be their best price, right? Because they don't really, they're not going to be crushed if they don't. They're not going to be crushed if they don't get the sale, if we don't partner, because there were these other issues. So, I mean, we can make, say, we're interested in you. What do you think? They're probably going to say, oh, yeah, sure, here, let me draw up a proposal. And just bear in mind that's probably not going to be their best price. But what if the amount of money that we're talking about isn't even big money to them? Okay, we're not their usual type of account. We're not in their usual service area. And this is like worst case scenario. And that's not even a lot of money to them, right? I think that right in here is kind of might be where Dell and Amazon services fall with NoteShaper. They just consider you a nuisance. If you approach them like for a strategic partnership, It's now, we don't actually know what their reaction would be. This doesn't foretell the future, but it is a common sense warning that if you put out an offer, would you like to draw up a proposal and become our and become our long-term partner for student transportation here at UB, they may not even answer. They may not even answer that email. I mean, which is to say, you've only got so much energy and so much time to find a partner. This is like the least promising category because they probably consider you a nuisance. This other category, again, kind of like a reflection of the top, sort of a special case, but it's interesting. Here, you're not talking about a lot of money, right? Because we're to the left. But there's a reason why they consider your account nonetheless attractive, and this does happen. Usually it's because they expect you to grow. They've looked you over, and they think, well, you know, that's pretty small change for us right now, but, you know, those people, they've got good ideas, and they're going places, and we want to be their supplier, right? We want to be their partner for transportation. So we're going to get in right now and partner with them because of the belief that this will grow over here and become core. So that is a happy thing. I know of a certain company that found a very, very good partner that I could argue the partner was thinking in terms of this because the money wasn't all that great, but the opportunity represented an opportunity for the supplier to break into a new market. I thought, you know, you might be saying, I thought, you know, if you were outside their service area, you weren't an attractive account. It just depends on the circumstances. Maybe they're thinking, right, they've got all the business in a certain area and they want to reach out and start taking business in another area, and you'd be the opportunity to do that. That would also move you up in terms of attractiveness. Oh, you're still pretty small, but they want to get a beachhead, so to speak, in that. You're right. So you'd be in develop, which is to say that there's promise here as well. There's promise here as well, but what we definitely want to do is talk to these folks first, whoever lands here. Any questions on that? So this is a way of sifting. First, you sift through everything that you need, possibly a partner for, and you sift out the categories that, you know, you really don't exactly need a partner for that. And then you look for the partners, for the things you do need partners for, and you sift through all the possible partners, and you're hoping to find somebody right in here. Now, if there's not any questions on it, then we can just go ahead and practice this. Because this is the actual problem in the book. Just had some words knocked out of it. This is the supplier positioning matrix. Let's see. The scenario is Fields of Green is a vegetarian restaurant. Okay. The day shift manager is responsible for purchasing many different goods and services required to operate the business. Currently, the manager is considering 4 purchasing categories, so all the work of identifying categories and what is in what category has already been done. And it's just being rattled off as a list. Fresh vegetables, security system monitoring, office supplies, and after-hour cleaning. What does the supplier positioning matrix suggest about these categories, and what does this suggest about what the day shift manager should do? And here we have, again, the blank. Now, here's what I recommend. We're ultimately going to position those here and talk about what that means. Don't be afraid of scratch work, because a lot of scratch work is done in this. Let me pull this down where we can see it here in Jacobs 106 on the screen, because I want to list the 4 categories. They're what? Fresh vegetables, right? Security system, monitoring. I'll just write security system. Office supplies, ever popular example of a category. And after-hour cleaning, commercial cleaning of their kitchen and dining area during these small hours of the morning. Okay, so they say there's 4 categories. We list them. We want to position each of those 4 categories in order to determine in each case how we should proceed next, we being the day shift manager. Now, this is what I mean by scratch work. Before you look at the matrix, remember that the horizontal axis, what I wrote was spending, right? It's all about spending. How much do you spend? Now, this particular scenario that we're now analyzing didn't come with a whole lot of information, right? It's 1 paragraph. Okay, so we're going to have to make some judgment calls here. But we don't really need any numbers. It's a vegetarian restaurant. Do you think it spends a lot or a little on fresh vegetables? Lots, right? That's why vegetarian restaurant, right? Lots. As opposed to security system monitoring service, like ADT. Compared to everything that they spend money on, right? It's deliberately evoking something that is maybe a little. Or what other word you want to use, less. And again, office supplies, it's a restaurant. Do you think it spends a massive amount of its revenue on paper clips and notepads? No, right? That's another deliberately trying to evoke something that's a relatively minor category of spending. And then after hour cleaning. So you're hiring a commercial service to come in during the small hours of the morning and do a deep clean of your commercial kitchen and a cleaning of your dining room area. That is something that has to be done every day. That's one of the things I notice, right? So without any specific information on this, I'm imagining that I'm definitely not going to say it's something like security system or office supplies, right? This is probably not insignificant because they spend this, they're going to be contracting for this to be done every day, right? So lots or more. These 2 things definitely a lot of spending, these 2 not so much. All right, now, wait a minute. This is just scratch work. What was that business about vulnerability? Or can I spell it? Not without running over the seam in the chalkboard. Vulnerability or risk. This is the up and down. Okay, so this is where you gauge something. If all of a sudden all of it was taken away from you and your supplier disappeared, how big trouble would you be in? So if you were a restaurant and one morning you realized nobody was going to sell you any vegetables, are you in a lot of trouble? Especially if you're a vegetarian restaurant? Yes. Right? Okay, so this is high risk. How about security system? What do you think? High risk? Yeah, I was saying that's kind of like a stereotype. High risk. Or I should say higher. It's not like vegetables. But I'm just making notes as opposed to office supplies, right? Your sort of classic stereotype of that's not very risky. We ran out of notepads. You know what? We could just start writing on the back of receipts if we had to. Low to no risk. I'm just going to write low risk, low risk. And, you know, it's actually not clear cut here with the after hours cleaning service in that I see an argument for lower risk, lower, because I see that if our partner suddenly went bankrupt and disappeared, this happens after hours. There's a lot of short-term things actually that we could do. There's a lot of cleaning services generally in any given area, and we might have to pay a premium, but it wouldn't be that hard to quickly pivot something else into place. If nothing else, for the first night that we were out, we could ask our own employees to do the same thing. I'm seeing that. So, and a lot of times this type of service will be positioned that way because there's a lot of providers. There's one little thing about that, having said that, that bothers me in the back of my mind, but why don't we go ahead at least and fill out the note page? Because why did we do this? We're looking for the sectors, right? Lots of spending on fresh vegetables and a high risk means over to the right and up in the upper category. That is trying to be strategic, classic example, a vegetarian restaurant, what category of spending would be strategic fresh vegetables? It's what they do. As opposed to, like, what did we say here? That office supplies were little and low. That's pretty obvious tactical acquisition. We're going to pay the least amount of attention to where we get those and at what price. Now, security system monitoring. Security system is your stereotypical example for a lot of businesses of strategic security, in that we don't spend a lot of money on it relative to everything we spend money on, but you know what? It's our security, it's kind of sensitive. If we've got a good partner, we're not necessarily going to shop around. The way that this scenario is set up, we spend a fair amount of money on cleaning services. And it's true that if we, just for some reason, whatever service we had a contract with, if they just didn't show up, there's a lot of fallback things that we could do. And there are a lot of providers of these services. Like in the book, it's shaping it up to be tactical profit. How would you treat that category? There's a lot of service providers in your area, right? Put out an announcement. Does anybody like to bid on, give me a price on what it would cost for you to do this for us? This, don't worry about it so much. This, you probably tolerate a little bit of a premium maybe, but certainly you want to make sure you have a very good partner here and you want to pay attention to the top. Does anybody have a sense of what might be bothering me about cleaning services? They're after-hours cleaning services, right? Because that's with restaurants. The cleaning service is going to come in the small hours of the morning. And we wanted something so that, like for your notes, we had one category land in each one of the categories. But, life isn't really actually that simple. I would cheat this up a little bit. I think, at least in my mind, cleaning services kind of falls in the center here because in real life, things don't necessarily classify cleanly. And the reason is that it's after-hours cleaning service. That means that this company needs keys to your place, right? And they're going to be in your facility when you're not there. You need to trust them, right? There's a certain degree of risk here. So you might just not want to treat it purely every year or every 6 months, asking everybody for their best price and switching freely. See, that is another implication of the tactical profit category. Somebody could be your source, right? This year, they have a contract for this year. And maybe they worked for you before, even before this year. But the thing is that if you consider them in this category, it's not personal or anything. But if next year they don't come through with the lowest price, you're switching, right? I don't know necessarily if you want to be that blatant, clear-cut about that with a person who's got the keys to your place. Right? Maybe build a little bit more of a long-term partnership. Anyway, that's kind of me editorializing. Is that even a word? Any questions on that? Okay. Picking a partner. Now, this is actually the scenario from the book. There's a much neater, cleaner version of this. Just wanted to point out, we talked about commodity category planning, spend analysis, ABC, supplier positioning. That's that. We just did that. Focus here, drive down costs down below. And by the way, supplier preferencing, if you'd like, I didn't put it in the notes, but the scenario goes on in the book. in which here are for the fresh vegetables, because that's the only thing that landed solidly in strategic critical. It goes on and categorizes for potential partners. And of course, neat and clean for the purpose of demonstration, only one of them winds up there in the core. And that's the person or the company that you approach first. That's the most promising candidate for a partnership. Okay, I'm pretty sure after this was just some old problems, right? Yeah. Here we go. Visualize our old supply chain. What are the answers to these? It's available on the web. A string of A's, D, C, and then D. Some of that should look a little familiar, but this is another opportunity to practice the same thing right here, except for a veterinary hospital. It's the it's a supplier positioning. I'm pretty sure it's positioning, right? What category consider core? Yeah, supplier positioning. Okay, now what follows after that is we go right into chapter 10, and like I said, no, we won't do that today. But no, something fun. Get rid of that and go to UB Learns. Here we are in UB Learns. Oh, by the way, this is the landing page. And please notice, although I know that there's time, I actually originally had 4 rooms in natural science for people who are taking it in the evening in Buffalo. That has changed. You might want to glance at that. We were able to get more people into one of the rooms, but that's not what I wanted to point out. Yes, everybody noticed the native son scores are up right now. Congratulations to all our winners. We mostly pushed the Air Force Academy off the leaderboard. I was quite pleased. If you go to bulletin board, right now at the top of the bulletin board, open please, there's a spreadsheet. Are you opening? Come on. Yes. No, that's not what I want. It's got everybody's results. Come on. Open you. Oh, well. The computer's quit on us, too. Oh. Now it decides to launch. Oh, there it is. It opens to this page. Just wanted to point out some interesting things about Native Son now that it's done. On this page, first off, congratulations to 91% of our community because 91% of the class found a full credit schedule. Which means that we have an interesting collection of that is the nature of authentic problems. There isn't a single answer to them. And we now have an interesting constellation of different answers, everything from I can get this movie filmed in 155 days to I can get this movie filmed in 651 days, which is the better part of 2 years. This right here shows you the average across everybody's schedule. So I don't know if you can read this degree of resolution, but did you realize at the time that across our entire class, the major source of spending, what you guys spent the most money on, was crashing? Just that one thing about crashing, you could shorten up the construction of the sets, was on average about half the total spending, which was fine because people were shortening it up at the beginning so they didn't have such a long Gantt chart and there was no budget. But it's interesting to look at this relative to the championship schedules because you get a sense of how, now why did we have 3 different competitions? Because in project management, these objectives tend to conflict. This is, for instance, the schedule that was 155 days. And if you look, the distribution of spending, interestingly, is not too terribly different. One of the things that you see if you want to compare is this is the utilization right here of people in their work contract. It's much higher here, but it's even higher here. In the case of the least costly schedule, there is no crashing. There is no crashing, and generally speaking, when you opened up a location, you were only actually working there about 20% of the time, versus for the least costly schedule, all of the coordination was being done to make sure that there wasn't a lot of idle time there because you pay for it, right? So it's 90%. And you can see that then payroll becomes the majority, right, when you're trying to work down the cost of it. These things tend to conflict. So that's actually why we had the competitions. If you want something done in a short amount of time, then you're going to spend more money on it. If you want something done as least costly as possible, generally speaking, that's not going to be also the shortest amount of time, which is actually why, in case you were curious, we had 3 competitions. Because the third competition, the third leaderboard down at the bottom, was least costly schedule with $85,000 a day in overhead. And you say, well, what is that supposed to represent? Actually, that's pretty common with companies that do large-scale projects as their industry, for instance, movie making, but also construction, that in addition to everything that you're actively spending money on, every day that the project is open is also costing you in the background a certain amount of money, because it's an open account at your front office, your home office, which is your home office is then supporting all of these different projects. Oh, and it creates a compromise. That was the purpose of the third. That generally in real life creates a compromise between those two objectives. We want to concentrate on saving money, but we don't want to extend the length of the schedule such that if we don't pay attention to the indirect overhead, we're actually costing ourselves money again. So what's the best trade-off between the two? Now, there is a list of folks who won the top honors on the landing page of UB Learns, but there were a lot of really good schedules. And if you want to see where yours ranked, it opens to this sheet, but just look at this. Well, first off, actually it's easier to look at this. I was going to click on the data sheet, but there's another tab and it says class-wide rankings. This is a ranking of every full credit schedule. There's actually 608 of them. There are more full credit schedules than there are people in this class, because some people developed more than one. And they're all ranked. So you just use like find in Excel and search for your username and make it a sense of where's yours landed. There are a lot of good ones. So anyway, that's what I wanted to squeeze in here at the end, just to say well done. I know everybody's mind is now off to something else, I understand. So we'll stop here, and on Thursday, we're actually starting the stuff that applies to Exam 3.